All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Tsukimonogatari, Episode 1. All right, a new arc.
Yes, a new arc, and I believe this also means a new season, in that the whole stuff with Tsuruga was like a post-season 2 bit, with Koi being end of season 2.
Have we begun?
So maybe this means this is season 3.
Season.
Final season, possibly. But that also means that maybe we'll get into another round of arcs focusing on different characters, maybe cycling back to previous ones or going into side ones.
Yeah, my guess is that if it's that, we would cycle back to the core a little bit. And being the core character that he is, I would say it's Araragi in combination with one or two other characters, maybe establish a little bit of a ground for where the kind of the direction continues.
There's a part of me that's wondering, like, wait, if it's Tsukimonogatari, does that mean it's going to be Tsukihi focused?
No,
but that almost seems too obvious for Monogatari. Like,
I just feel like that's not why the arcs are named after the names of the people. The arcs are named after the motifs and the themes of the
Moon
arc.
Definitely not Tsuki.
No, it's probably going to be some kind of like monstrous kind of thing, not like actually like dangerous, but like something with regards to not human. So even though a lot of the characters have some aspect about them that's not human,
maybe Hanakawa. Maybe like we saw her in Koi.
I mean, we'll just find out. But like, I particularly want some more Araragi focus because just having him back, even though Tsuruga's whole bit with him was, you know, way in the future
Araragi.
Yeah, it was really cool to have. It was some of my favorite interactions. So, y'all, without further ado, let's start a new arc. All right, everyone, we're going to be starting the episode in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, now. Oh, Yotsugi, maybe. Yes. He's a doll. Huh?
Please tell me we're going to get a bit more banter with with Shinobu.
Shinobu.
So she's like
she's
a
zombie. Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, we did get some particular conversations with her earlier. But where's her true conflict? Okay.
Right. Survival. Not, yep. That's true. That's true.
Okay.
Cool. So-called metamorphic monsters.
It's a good question. Okay. So maybe it's about identity?
Oh. Whoa. Whoa.
Okay. All right.
Oh, dang. Yeah. I love all the poses she's doing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah. No one else is going to tell the story of ghost stories. Mm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that conversation.
Yeah. It's time to show. Aw. Uh-huh. Whoa. You should have known that?
Certainly after Hachikuji. Mm-hmm. Okay.
Okay.
Hmm.
Whoa.
Hmm.
Whoa.
Hmm.
So we have the doll, the zombie, being used
Right.
as a prop of sorts to like look at me,
Right.
look at me.
And we saw her doing a bunch like a montage of human things
Right.
earlier.
Uh-huh. And disappears.
Yeah.
Uh
Hey.
uh the double audio.
Yeah.
Whoa. Whoa, jeez. Whoa.
Thank you and good night. Mitsuki's hair is just like crazy long.
Yeah. Yes. We're alarm sisters.
Ugh.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Oh.
Oh. Dang, okay. Whoa. Ha ha ha!
Ah. Wow.
Planned around your plan. Ugh. Right. Oh my god.
Wow.
Jeez.
What is this dance he's doing?
It's like an idol dance or something.
Yeah.
Whoa. Okay. Ah.
Ah.
Mm-hmm. All things must come to an end.
Yeah.
Hmm. That's part of who she is. Time is ticking.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. He's just constantly being reminded.
Okay.
Well, this is okay. I was gonna say that. I was like, I think the whole point of this was to show that you need to wake up.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my god.
Wait.
You're the West. No, you're the worst. The music is so frenetic.
Yeah.
The animation. Hmm. Hmm.
And another aspect of something that needs to end, you know?
Those are great abs, though. That 8-pack.
And then Shinobu just pops out of his shadow and is like, shut up.
Yeah, yeah. Yep.
Yes, you have enough hair as it is, Arahagi. You don't need any more.
The economy. Oh, well, Astro Onicha. Cool. Much better this way. A one-liner. The music, though.
Yeah.
Or if you're wishing for something. Chuki chuki.
Yes.
Uh-huh. Okay.
I was wondering if they were going to go in that direction when
Right.
things were brought up.
Cool. Uh-huh.
Okay.
Comes from being your half vampire superhuman self. Mm. Mm-hmm. Ah.
That's the idea.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Oh.
Okay.
Really?
Hence the desire for a god in the first place, probably.
Right. Whoa. Whoa. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Mm. Yeah. Yeah. Right.
Yeah. He was thinking about Shinobu. Yeah. His reflection wasn't there?
Whoa. Whoa.
Oh, damn. Now that's a vampire thing, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Wait, so...
Well, okay. So
Wait, so then why was
no.
Yutsuki...
So there's two things being done in this episode here. They're setting up the beginning arc bit with Araragi here, but they're also setting up the grander arc of the story here by it being the beginning of the end.
Right.
One of the things that they mentioned was the idea of observation, something that needs to be observed in order to exist.
And now Araragi is kind of becoming incapable of being observed?
No, he's being incapable of existing.
Right.
Like, did you hear the words that they were, or read the words that they were saying about Araragi? If he doesn't do, like, the college entrance exams and stuff?
Yeah.
Like, this is really bad.
Well, and then is this something that they're setting up for this arc in particular, or just as that's what his story is for the third season?
Right, there's two things like that. There's the stuff for this arc, and then there's the overall arc. Yeah,
right.
So it's both. Yeah.
And if the whole thing of if he's becoming more of a vampire than his 10% or whatever he is right now, then is that something tied to Shinobu? Because normally you would think that, or is it something that's just within himself? And then how's it tied to Yotsugi?
Okay.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah. As far as episodes go for a beginning of an arc, surprisingly, this is one of the most alarming ones I've probably watched in a long time. Because one, it deals with Araragi.
Yes.
But two, it's the Araragi is not okay kind of Araragi stuff.
And the fact that it's as the beginning of a part, right? Of essentially Act 3 of the story, that can both be positive and negative, because it can be the last vestiges of the issues that he's dealt with, and it can also be it might not necessarily end on the best note.
Well, they gave literally the bit that it's going to end for him. They like that doesn't sound good. Like that doesn't sound like a
right. It feels like it's the thing where he needs to come to the understanding that this does end, right? That he's not going to continue doing this forever, right? That his life will go on, and he'll graduate high school and go on to the next stage and all that.
Okay, that's one way to look at it. The part here where they're doing the narration bit, that I wanted to just draw attention to this rather quickly, is that this is the beginning of the end. This is the story about how a human named Araragi Koyomi, about how myself, Araragi Koyomi. Do you see that distinction? The human, myself. There's that little bit of separation there.
Oh, that's
will
interesting.
end and begin.
That the first time.
That is this story. Now, Yotsugi is probably going to be a huge focus of it, some part of it, but the actual story is something that is about how. So maybe this part, this Tsukimonogatari is the bit with Yotsugi and all that there, but this is basically them saying like, I think it's one of two things: Araragi becomes a full-fledged vampire and like forsakes his humanity, falls deeper into depression, goes off the deep end dark ways or what have you, and maybe there's some kind of way that he can live with that, or he actually like dies, like it actually ends with his death.
So I would say there's a few things that that thematically I would say are fairly pointed here. One, Tsukimonogatari, the moon. One, night, so vampires, but also that's a cycle, right? And then it ends, right? Moon goes away and the sun comes out. Yotsugi, she's dead, but she's pretending to be alive, right?
Right.
In a way to fit in and all that stuff, right?
Right, because it's primarily of a way to be amongst humans and be connected to them, not to assimilate and become a human.
Right. But I would say that's something that, as far as, because the fact that, since this is at the beginning of essentially season 3, then of course they're going to establish any of the overarching arcs for the season at the beginning, because that's important.
Because they're important. Yep.
But since they also have the specific instance of what's the first arc that we're focusing on, they also need to introduce that.
Right.
But I don't think it's any coincidence that it's Yotsugi and Araragi at the beginning, because they go hand in hand, right?
Yeah, Shinobu is in some ways kind of like the conscience of Araragi, kind of talking to him and being his internal feedback system.
Yeah, but just the idea of, like, if you think about Araragi's journey and Yotsugi's journey that she's on right now, even if it doesn't necessarily feel like there's a whole lot of conflict in that journey yet, is it's someone who is dead, right? That is trying to, blend in with the humans, blend in with the people that are living, right? Araragi was super depressed, right?
Oh,
and
sure.
in a lot of ways, while he's
dead inside,
won some battles against that, yeah, there's still going to be a part of him that's dead inside. He hasn't fully beaten it, right?
So he pretends to be human. He pretends to be okay in order to connect with them and have friends and do life,
help people, and all that stuff.
Well, and this is the thing that I think that the way that works is it also ties into the thing they focus in the next bit is that Araragi, you need to take care of yourself. You need to do your homework. You need to cram. You need to do the stuff. And all these people telling you should, which is just going to make him overload and eventually have a moment where he relapses. And I think the representation of him becoming a full-fledged immortal vampire might be some aspect of that. Well, there might be something else that we're missing, but I think that's a key to that.
But in the whole thing of him not cramming, I feel like it's an aspect of him not thinking about his future, right?
Sure.
Right, and not giving proper attention to it. And I can't remember who said this, but there was some line where it's like, like when a nation is at war.
Oh, not in the episode. Oh,
okay. Yeah. But that when a nation is at war, they've lost hope when education stops being a priority for the next generation.
Oh,
because it shows that basically they're not thinking about the future, right?
Gotcha.
They're not thinking of having an existence past the immediate, right? And in this situation here, like there were a lot of things that I felt like clued into the vampire aspect of like not just the mirror, but also like him accidentally being too hard with scrubbing Tsuki's hair, but then also him wanting to sleep all the time, like even during the day and stuff, and time moving forward. But an immortal vampire would essentially stay in one place, in one time forever.
Right.
Yeah, this man.
Also, I just wanted to say that there were a couple things in this episode that reminded me of certain things in the horror genre. Some things that they did with the music, and some things that they did with the visuals, and a couple things that they did in the mental thought transition cards of sorts. This was a rather scary episode. So I want to explain why I'm saying that. There are what I would call jump scares. Yeah, that's essentially what they're called. Yeah. This episode had no jump scares until the very end. But I kind of want to bring up the idea that this entire episode was all build up for that jump scare.
The unsettling kind of.
Yes. So one of the worst things about horror for me personally is I too easily get excited. I too easily get my heart rate up and go just, you know. So if you put too much sugar or caffeine into me, I just boing, 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 bounce all everywhere. That's a physical response, obviously, and a lot of people have that. But sometimes there's certain music kind of things where it creates this feeling of frenetic, like, dun, dun, something's bad's coming.
That kind of flight.
Yeah, and if you repeat that too much, you repeat it basically too long, your brain stops being able to separate that you're not in a worry for your survival. And you start subtly shifting into defensive mode.
All right.
And I feel like the way that they switched things from the OP to having Araragi hear the alarm clock and it be the wake up, there's like a million genius things I think they could be doing with this, but I just want to focus on one. And that is the harsh, brutal jump scare of the alarm clock. The idea that there's this peaceful existence. Right. You're just wrapped in darkness and nothingness. And that's wonderful and comforting. And then suddenly, life hits you.
There's a shocking and abrupt end.
There's a shocking and abrupt beginning, maybe, even as well. That is demanding your attention.
The end of one thing is the beginning of another.
Yeah. And I think the fact that we've had scenes in the past where it's more like, I think something we heard in like the end of episodes, I'm talking like way back in Bake, where these two were jumping on his bed and waking him up like, come on, Araragi, wake up. This is a thing for Araragi. This is a bit that he's had to deal with. Do you get the vibe, Jacob, that the sudden nature of this and then the shift into that weird sequence of scenes where it's him contemplating why the alarm clock and the existence of the alarm clock brings him such hatred.
The double voice and
everything. The double voice, all the crazy visuals, him just freaking out. Does that not feel like the beginning of some horror type scare build up thing?
Well, no, I mean,
or at least a mental insanity breakdown.
Right. I wouldn't describe it as horror for me particularly. Maybe in a different story, but because it's Monogatari, that wasn't how it seemed to me. Okay. But what it did make me think of is that, and this is becoming a lot more clear with time to sort of contemplate it. But that there was the whole thing of Araragi saying like, about a person named Araragi, a human named Araragi, and about myself, Araragi, which, by the way, a human in
he only did it twice, but yeah.
No, right, but but he did it twice. He, more than once, right?
More than once, yeah, exactly.
And then the fact that there were two voices, right? And with mental health, I mean, if you start hearing multiple voices, that can tend to be a problem. And
tends to be
right, and in Araragi's case, the Fire Sisters jumping on the bed and waking him up and all that stuff, it feels on the one hand a reminder of what's good in his life, right? That he has a bunch of people that care about him.
They care about him a lot,
right? And that there might be a difference between how they care about him and about he cares for himself.
Yep.
Right.
Yep. Definitely.
And then also hearkening back to previous times, because I think the last time we saw them waking him up in this focusing on it this much at least was at the end of Bake, and he wasn't he was doing a lot better at the end of Bake than at the beginning, but that was still much earlier on in his journey, right?
Okay.
Sure.
So do you find then that this is something where the show is getting a little less transparent and more opaque with giving us where Araragi's struggle really lies? And that there is a dichotomy in that he has always been the kind of person who has that savior's complex, desire to help other people at the risk of himself constantly.
Yeah.
But when people come into his life and are like, you need to take care of yourself, literally shake him awake, wake up, buddy. He then shifts things so quickly onto, I really feel like Karen, she really is not up to her potential. She could be doing so much more.
Classic deflection and projection. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. So the build up to this being an emotionally distraught one with the alarm clock, and it's over the top in a specific way because we're trying to make sure we understand what he's feeling here. But the ways in which he calms down, so there's an aspect of Monogatari with regards to Araragi being the main character in that he is the perv lord of this entire story.
Definitely.
There's other characters that are definitely
their competition.
But he is the
takes the cake.
He takes the cake completely. And the way they used, I think, Araragi kind of focusing on that to this point is maybe another example of him being so distracted, so completely focused on other things in his environment to the point where he cannot really address his own internal problems until it literally stares him in the face.
Yeah.
That aspect of the mirror showing nothing, I think, is absolute genius.
Well, right, because there's the idea of him being a vampire, right? So that's very straightforward. He's a vampire, so this is some sort of relapse of that, right? And then there's the relapse of his mental state, which goes hand in hand with that. But this is also where he's forced to take a look at himself, to evaluate himself, right?
He can't.
And he sees nothing.
Well, he actually can't. You can't look at yourself like you can look down at your thing there, but you can't look at your face.
Sure,
basically.
Okay, yeah, same thing, different language, right?
Yeah.
But and if you were to talk about depression, I would say that's a pretty good descriptor, right? Where even if you do the literal thing to look at yourself, you don't even see anything. You can't actually get a gauge on yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, and one of the other things that I thought was, and I actually kind of got the opposite feeling with the Suki bath scene. I actually thought that maybe it was something, and I want to hear what you think about this, in that it seemed weird that he wasn't aware of the situation more than he was. Because usually Araragi is very, very pervy in the things that he does, but he's aware of the way that he's being pervy, and a lot of times it's intentional for some joke or something else, right?
Sure.
In this situation, he was in a very, like, pervy kind of situation, right? And yet he didn't seem to think about it that much, right? Like, or maybe he did at some points, but like, I don't know.
Maybe there's kind of a thing you're bringing up with that, in that when she was like, come on, say something, that, you should say something to make this awkward. And then he's like, well, then you can leave.
Because it feels like basically a state of denial where because the in the beginning it talked about how it was the understanding that all things must come to an end, right?
Right.
And that this is a, traditionally when you would think about this, you would think of the, oh yeah, well, we're past the point where we take baths together because we've grown up, right? That thing has ended. And then but no, not for Araragi, right? And then in this situation, it's still something where he hasn't realized that this is something that needs to come to an end, right? That he needs to move on to a later stage of life, basically, because he's still sort of keeping himself frozen where he is.
Right. I think you might be right with regards to that in some way. I think that one of the things that she repeated over and over again, Asuki, was basically saying that you have too much of a burden, a weight on your shoulders. And they brought up the stuff with Nadeko. But I think the fact that she even at some point started to actually like read his mind and answer his own thoughts out there is showcasing that not only is he not really in a good way, but he is literally having his environment scream out at him, basically. Yeah. You need to let go of all this extra crap that is burdening you and bringing you down, or it will end you.
And also, if you think about it, in the previous arc with him talking to Tsuruga in the future, so after he's gone through whatever this is and dealt with this conflict properly, the thing that he was, talking to her about is the idea of letting go, right? And the idea of running versus facing the problems and facing music and all that stuff. And also the whole idea of him having his hair be way longer. It gives that, yes, it is very much that sort of like wise sage kind of thing, right? Hair length is directly proportional to the wisdom power. To anime power, but also a lot like in a simpler, like, I don't know,
fantastical way.
It's often the sage, the wise one, right? And that's something where, he had kind of achieved nirvana. Like, I think that was something that you said. And here he clearly hasn't.
Well, we're basically not relapsing all the way back, but we're basically, I think it's a reason why the order is in this way, is that we saw Araragi having achieved balance, nirvana. They even brought up balance here. And then he brings it up how that's like his role. And it's I love this bit here, because this feels like they're poking a freaking hole in the whole point of Monogatari. It's like, even if everything doesn't turn out fine, I mean, make sure there's a good balance. Balance, huh? Well, that wasn't my role at first. And then she goes, "It's not your role at all." And he and then that's when he starts, being too hard on her, and she's like, ouch, ouch, ouch. Yeah. Oh my God, just that. No, it does not. That's not when he's actually when he starts squeezing too much. I think that was when it was something about Nadeko. It's way earlier, I think. This is when he brings up. It's when he brings up Nadeko. But specifically with this bit of him trying to be the one to achieve balance or bring balance, it's not a thing again where he's trying to bring balance within himself. That would be nirvana. It's more of the thing of, no, he's been the one trying to be like Oshino, but like not Oshino, like even more than that, like actually the one trying to be like, I am watching over this town and trying to make sure that everything is balanced and what have you.
And that might be the way that he makes himself feel better, because he knows that he is not balanced up here, right? So, but if you can bring balance to the stuff out there, then at least the fact that he's so imbalanced on the inside, that kind of balances out, right?
Or, he doesn't observe it. This is the point that I feel this is the point that I resonate with very much so with my own mental health journey, is they brought up the idea that aberrations exist thanks to people. They exist because humans exist. Like, this is like rules of the story stuff they're talking about here. The idea of, why do aberrations in legends, or another word so-called metamorphic monsters, always take the shape of humans and animals? Because they're unreal existences. Yet they base their shape on things that really exist. Meaning they're not real. They're things that we basically, because we observe them, we turn them into something that we can relate.
And because Araragi's not observing himself, it's Yeah,
exactly. So, I never really thought, there's this little bit, they do the little torn piece of paper, which I really like. Never really, and it's also so fast. I know. I have to like grab it here really quick. So you never really thought about it? I hadn't never thought about it. That is, well, if I can say so, because perhaps the limitations of human imagination, which makes sense. Humans can only speak about reality using words they know.
Right, language dictates thought, yeah.
Right, exactly. So in the end, aberrations exist thanks to people. They exist because humans exist, which a vampire is an aberration.
Yeah.
So is Araragi going full aberration, where the only way that he actually exists is through connection, an attachment, if you will, not actually a singular being or identity?
Okay.
That is okay. I'm going to say something personal here in a second, but this doesn't mean that aberrations are dependent on humans, though. And I like that bit there. It just means that if there's nobody to observe, nobody's being observed. Just blows my mind that they're getting into that here, because that means Araragi might be in the state where he's believing that if the problem doesn't get observed, if he observes all the other problems, then
his will go away.
That his will go away. That it's basically the thought that, if I can just ignore it, then I don't have to deal with it. It's the opposite of running or fighting. It's the other thing that's on that vector that Tsuruga was bringing up there. It's apathy. So this is the depressing thing here. So when I was in high school, we moved very far away from where we originally lived, but it was in the same state. But the worst part about that was that we moved just far enough away, and because I was younger and no one has the ability to like drive or anything crazy like that far distances to make this stuff happen, there was the thought that all the friends that I had in the past were all friends of convenience, because we didn't have opportunities that we forced to make our connections happen. Gotcha. There was only one person that actually were able to stay relatively close through that transition. And as such, I got really depressed. And I don't think it really ended from like 14 or 15 until about like 18 or 19. Gotcha. So that like whole period, which is essentially what this show kind of focuses on, the high school period or what have you, I kind of felt like this, and I used this kind of technique thinking it would work on myself in ages like 16 and 17. I basically like pushed myself out and didn't ever focus on my own internal problems until mature people that were willing to kind of call me on my BS when I turned like 18 and such were like, you need to take care of yourself, buddy. And it was this brutal, painful, gut-wrenching awakening. It is not fun to have to basically wake up and look internally and realize, oh, yeah, I'm not okay. I'm really not okay. Yeah. And this kind of stuff there, I'm freaking excited for them to go into it. So that's what I kind of wanted to say. I want to know your thoughts, though, on Shinobu being one of the first kind of characters to get speaking time, though, in this in this next stage of the story.
I mean, I'm happy because I'm wearing the shirt, so from that perspective. But I mean, it's not like the other shirt would have. Anyways, but I think it's interesting that Shinobu was the one talking about it, because especially when it comes to like Aragi's depression and everything, Shinobu's the one that was the most in parallel with that, right? Hence Kizu.
Right.
But she's talking about it, and because she's an ancient vampire and all that stuff, when she talks about it, on the one hand, it feels like it's a factual kind of like expositor, kind of like, okay, here's the scoop, right?
Right.
She's kind of taken on Oshino's role, in a lot of ways. But because she also has personal experience with it, it feels interesting that she's telling Araragi about it. And yet the issue that Araragi ends up having later, from what we can tell, is something of him turning into more of a vampire. So, and that's based on the rules of what they've set up so far for the story. That's something that under normal circumstances would require some, corresponding behavior from Shinobu, right? But that isn't there. So it's probably going to be some new aberration that comes about as a result of it. But I don't know. I'm kind of curious who exactly is going to be the main people that interact with Araragi as far as dealing with the direct aberration side of it. Because there's Karin and Tsukihi and all the people close to him in Senjigahara that will want to be there for him and help him and whatnot, deal with the personal problem. But since there's the personal and the aberration problem that kind of go in parallel, part of me is wondering like whether Shinobu will be like a big part of that, or maybe I'm just being, like hopeful, or whether that'll maybe then be focused on with Yotsugi, because I could imagine her having a very similar plight in that if she were to look inside, she would probably see nothing. Right. Because she's a doll, right?
Right. And they're definitely trying to draw a parallel to her and Araragi based on not only conversations they've had in the past, but the way she kind of exists, like, and just is.
I feel like the idea of the doll is something that's used a lot in anime specifically. And maybe it's like the language or something where it's not as direct of a one-to-one translation, so there's more connotations to the word than just simply doll that we don't necessarily think about a lot in the West. But the idea of a doll, there's a soulless being, but then also oftentimes something on strings, something that's being manipulated by something else and having an existence with no internal purpose, and that's part of the idea of the soulless being, that either they'll just sit there and waste away in a corner somewhere, right? Or someone will play with them, right?
So I want to bring up that idea, the idea of playing with them. This is something that I think we've seen a lot with regards to Araragi. Like the interactions he's kind of had with her, they seem like that. Maybe in some ways, the idea is that since she is not human, she is a full aberration. One of the most important things about her is to be observed and connected with properly. In the same way that there are a lot of other characters in this story that have had unique applications of the who observes them, who doesn't kind of dynamic. I think with her, one of the biggest things that will be a point of this portion of the story is that the two unobserved ones, the two forgotten ones, basically find solace in the connection of another, but they're both not human, so they both can't save the other person. It's the idea of the misery loves company, but it's the dynamic that Araragi is being told overtly, almost in a way that breaks the fourth wall for us, that he needs help from a healthy whole human being. He needs to basically ask for help from a healthy whole human being if he's not going to take the effort himself in order to do it, which is the best way to do it. If he just takes the effort himself,
he's the only one that can save himself when it comes right down to it.
Right.
He might need a helping hand, but he still has to do it.
Right. But I think eventually he's going to realize that he doesn't believe himself capable of saving himself, so he will seek out the one who is also dead inside, the other one without a soul. Misery loves company. And they will reminisce about the lack of attachments to them.
One of the things that I would...
Even though it's not really true.
I could definitely see that happening, and that could be a really great way that they tie this arc into Araragi's overall arc for Season 3. when you mentioned the misery loves company, one of the things that I was wanting to bring up was the idea that sometimes you get comfortable in the places where you shouldn't be.
Ooh,
right?
Sure.
Because
sleeping.
Yeah, exactly. In Aragi's case at the beginning of this show, certainly in Kizu, it was a place that he could not stay forever, right? He was going to die if he stayed there, or he was going to get out of it, right?
Right.
One of those two things was going to happen. Thankfully, he was able to get out of it, right? With the help of a lot of people around him, right?
Right, kinda. Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I would say he's a lot closer to achieving a kind of stasis, right?
Oh, okay.
He's not quite found a balance, but he's found a way to sort of stay, right? To just continue existing. But the problem is that the world doesn't stay, right?
He hit a top, had to stop,
right?
But it's not bothering him.
Right. The idea that he may have figured out that with helping other people and with, doing all this stuff and these fantastical aberrations and everything, my own problems, I can kind of ignore them, and they're not rowdy
they're
enough.
Not that bad.
And they're not that bad. They're not rowdy enough to really cause any true trouble, right? I've dealt with them.
Especially not for others.
Sure.
Meaning it's not observable problems.
Right, exactly. And if he doesn't ever look inside himself, then he doesn't know if it actually causes problems. And if he's always doing something for other people, then it's not actually based on who he is, right?
Oh.
Like, if you think about it.
Yeah.
So, because they're the ones who help themselves, and then he's just sort of around there for it.
Right. I legitimately think that we could get a point where Araragi almost has to literally split himself in order to be able to observe himself. Like he needs to basically have a moment where he's like observing who he should be, or maybe who he's become. Almost like barely tethered still to it.
I'd say he already has.
Oh yeah.
And that's evidenced with the fact that he looks in the mirror and sees nothing.
Right.
But the idea that basically he's been ignoring himself to such an extent that he is cutting him off from that part of himself, right? And he can only truly defeat the demon, right? If he faces it, and he hasn't been. So right now and maybe Yotsuki's been foreshadowing this with the whole Oni Oni-chan and all that stuff and everything. But the idea that Aragi's got to face the music, right? He can choose what he's going to do, but not choosing is also a decision.
Yep.
And the thing is that you cannot make a decision without getting rid of other decisions, right? Choosing one thing over another thing, even if you choose not to choose, right? So,
don't try to split up the Fire Sisters. Stop trying to, put yourself into, their lives and changing all their stuff and what have you. Go back to you.
Although the fact that he could see that for the Fire Sisters, that just means it's something where he knows how he needs to change, even if he won't admit it to himself.
Sure.
So the thing of, you guys need to move on. You guys are reaching, some ends in your, in your life, and you're moving to new stages and things like that. There's going to be change, and that's good and healthy, but you need to accept that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Aragi. Well, look in a mirror.
Wait.
Yeah.
Wait.
So
I am very excited though for Yotsugi as a character. She is one that I've loved as almost a Chekhov's plot point that will be brought back up at some point in the future.
Because her introduction totally baffled me.
Was so off the wall.
Well, it was off the wall as far as like being weird and everything, but also just the idea of, why is Monogatari introducing another character here?
Right.
This seems way too late for that, right? Like. And granted, it was still actually pretty early because it was in Nisei?
We're in the Endgame now.
Right. But it was like, hold on now. What's the connection to everything else? Why do that? Because that's in order to do justice by Yotsugi in the same way that, Monogatari had been, and I was assuming was going to continue to do with the other characters. How do you just introduce this new character that doesn't have a strong connection point to any of them, really? Right? Why is she here? I mean, maybe that's another... parallel with Araragi, and here we are.
Yeah, I wanted to bring up this bit where Araragi might actually be being honest with himself with a specific part here where he's talking about remembering big events that happened.
Yeah.
Like, the darkness stuff, the things with Sengoku Nadeko.
Yeah.
And saying, I wonder how much longer things will go like this. I'm kind of fed up with it. And there's a lot of scenes in this where we see Yotsugi basically being nearby and being with him at specific places, but we don't see Araragi's face. Araragi's face is intentionally looking a different direction. And then the idea that he goes, this is one part that I feel like is too crazy, because I saw trickery as a word and I'm like, I gotta read that. And it says, to the apparitions which I meet one after another, feeling that trickery is starting to no longer work. Yeah. Meaning that he is unable to avoid the alarm clocks. He cannot.
Right. He literally has to face the music. Yeah.
Yeah. And to think, and he says basically that, but that feeling is a luxury, just reinforcing that. To think that it will continue forever is a luxury. And this world doesn't work like that. I should have known that.
Yeah.
Again, another I should, but this is Araragi saying that. Mm-hmm. Now, a bunch of things in this episode were you should. And I will just tell you, as someone who has gone through shit, you never tell someone you should over and over and over again.
Because one of the worst things that they can do is start telling themselves, I should. Because that definitely creates a split where there's the part of them that knows what they should do, but then there's the part of them that actually does stuff. And then you've got to divide, and you're dealing with essentially two different organisms at that point.
Right, yep.
And
so I think we already are observing it. This internal monologue from Araragi is the one that is accepting a little bit more of what's going on, and the one that's awake is,
and going down the roller coaster, looking down,
still not even looking.
Yeah. One of the other things that I thought was kind of interesting, and I'm not sure if there was a parallel in here somewhere, but when there was the montage with Yotsugi and everything, some of the things seemed like, this is them actually doing stuff, and it's like, wait, and then it turns out that that's probably something that's going to come later. But they also had a bunch of points where Yotsugi was basically inserted in for the other characters, right? The her being in the kimono like Shinobu was, or her having Hachikuji's backpack and things like that.
Right.
And is that something where, like help me out here? What are ways that can basically tie into Araragi's current mental state and sort of denial? Like maybe it's something where he's sort of plastering something over.
No, I think that's Yotsugi's stuff. I think what it is misery loves company. And she is seeking to better her connection with humans, but little does she know she's not with a human at this point. Well, she's doing human things and being like, look at me, dressed it up as like a doll, and I'm doing the fun kind of stereotypical things that a Japanese, girl would do, essentially. We're going to go to karaoke. We're going to go to a little festival and get dressed up. And I feel like all that stuff is the facade that he essentially keeps seeing over and over again and realizing, I can't keep dressing this up. I have to eventually face it. And then he gives the line here at the end of it where he's saying that this is the story, the doll I'm going to tell is the story where I came to understand that, the bit that he can't keep going like this. The story with the message that I understood whether I liked it or not. That is why it's the beginning of the end, is the story of how a human named Araragi Koyumi and about how myself, Araragi Koyumi, will end and begin. That is the story. And I also loved that this is the way they order it. They will end and begin. The fact is, we saw Araragi from the future. Araragi's going to be okay.
Yeah.
But he is going to have an end before he can begin again. He needs to go through the cycle and rebirth himself.
Exactly.
And in order to do that, he'll have to die. Like, in some ways, I want it to be not necessarily an actual like death, but I kind of want there to be an actual moment where that happens, because it is basically like that. Your demons essentially take hold, and you are not you. If you're aware, you're like realizing you're not yourself. So you need to kill that so that you can be reborn from the ashes and move on.
And with the end and begin, that's something that's very crucial for Araragi, because where he was at the start of this story, it was where he wanted an end, but he didn't see a beginning after that.
Right.
It was just an end, and that was it.
Now he has all these amazing friends that will be there to welcome him back up as a young one.
If Monogatari is a coming of age story, which it literally is, right?
It literally is.
Yeah. Then that's one of the most classic things that is part of growing up.
Yep.
Is understanding that there are things that have to end, right? There are limitations, you know, like, because when you're young, you're all potential and everything, right? And all that
Freedom!
stuff. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But you have to face the music of the fact that the real world is, you know, it's real, live in it, you know. But the idea that doesn't have to be a bad thing, right? And that when you make those decisions, and when you have those decisions that, you know, cut off other decisions, and there can be deaths in there, because, you know, over life, you know, you will go through multiple deaths essentially, but there's always something else after that, right? And this is Aragi kind of grappling with that.
I can just tell, though, if this arc actually explores a lot of this stuff, I'm gonna be a crying mess probably at least 2 times in this story here. Just in terms of setting it up, because it's just gonna be too real at some point.
Well,
and one of the things that I really like what they did with the kind of the sisters with this here is that, you know, they might actually be aware, like, way more than we could assume. I think
Tsukihi at the very least is.
Well, Tsukihi is the wise one,
right? Like she has.
I've come to accept her as the wise sage of the Araragi
She has
household.
the longest hair. Like,
that's true. Yes. In that they are trying to cheer him up.
Right.
They are trying to amp him up, and in some ways, that is maybe where they're different. Is that Karen is doing the Genki girl, like, energy, whereas Tsukihi is more the wise one, sitting back and being like, I'm gonna be here once your crazy energy heads out for a second, and then I'll be here to maybe give the thick medicine, you know, the one that you don't really want to swallow.
That pill where you're like, I don't think a horse could swallow this.
Right.
One of the things I also thought was kind of interesting was that Tsukihi was reading something, but it was something of Araragi's.
Right.
And it almost felt like to me like she was checking up on basically what's the stuff that he's surrounding himself with? What are the, like, little hobbies or whatever that he's getting up to?
Right.
Because I want to get a read on essentially how he's doing, right?
Yeah.
Where is his mind, you know?
I like that. Yes, definitely. That's amazing. Good insight. They have their jokes and what have you.
Yep.
We leads to the sequence of nakedness and glorious animation, and in some ways I definitely see what you're saying with he's so distracted potentially, or so burdened, or what have you, that he is not perving out as much as he would normally.
Well, and there's also this part of me that, like, maybe I'm attributing too much to Tsukihi, but I can't help but think that she planned this.
Oh,
so
okay, because she is the kind of person that would do this, like would plan it out, actually.
Right? Because the thing is that, like, Tsukihi, I feel like, is one of the smartest people in the show. She just doesn't necessarily let it on,
right?
You know, very much. And the fact that it's like she just happens to be there, right? It could totally be just, you know, random coincidence or whatever. But I would say it's also something where she's like, okay, I need to actually do some serious Tsukihi, like, in-depth, like, you know, therapy analysis stuff, right? So I'm basically going to have us both bare ourselves, right? And I'm going to make him think that it's just a coincidence and all that stuff, and, you know, all that, and, you know, have the hijinks of the throwing the shampoo at him and it sticks in the wall and all that stuff. But then she's like, okay, now that I have him in this state where he's essentially vulnerable and I have his attention and he can't run away, right? For a decent amount of time, now I'm actually going to start telling him the important stuff.
Sure.
Because maybe I'll get him to be able to listen here.
Yeah, she did tell him over and over and over again, you carry too much weight on your shoulders.
After she said nothing when she was in his room.
Yes, and I think that the bit that she says after that is also rather pointed. It's not like you can solve anything and everything on each end. You can toss stuff aside, leave stuff alone, and know your place in the world. You can live within your means and leave some stuff for others. I don't think that's bad, you know. About everyone. She says about Naruko-chan, about Karen, about me. But it's funny how she specifically, like, kind of avoids the other potential person, about yourself. I mean, in some ways, she is trying to push him away.
You don't worry about yourself enough.
Right, yes. But I think because of the omission, it's pointing out who needs the attention.
Right,
you do.
Yeah.
You worry about us way too much. And then she goes and shifts immediately into the
specific, like, hey, how's that actually
how's your
going?
studying really going?
Yeah.
And he's like, you think you can actually get by with 1 month? And he says, somehow I'll figure something out. I'll tell you that yep. And even though the mental thing gets told here, that is always the biggest lie.
Oh yeah.
Somehow ellipses. Yeah. I'll figure something out.
It's the teacher that's like, now this isn't something you can cram for the night before. You underestimate my power. Like,
yeah, and then the real world,
you get your limbs cut off and you fall into the lava. You know.
Yeah, exactly. And I liked how the mental thing brings up even if it wasn't, I had to answer that way.
And it's a crumpled up piece of paper. Yeah. I think that, like, okay, I love how the transition, like, bits have been in this episode in particular.
They freak me out in this episode.
Like, well, yeah, but it's
they unnerve me.
But the thing is that all of them are pieces of paper that are always cleanly put on top of each other. This one's crumpled up. That means this is something that he's avoided. He's bunched it up and thrown it away.
Oh,
right. But
okay.
This is something that he actually has to.
Sure.
Yep. This is what it says.
Yeah,
like
because I would say the reason I would bring up is just that saying he had to answer that way is just I'm not doing this for you. This is for my own specific reasons of I don't want to talk about this.
Right, exactly.
So I do I had to answer that way, which is obviously
yep.
When someone says I had to do this thing, it's more like you extremely wanted to.
Yeah,
something saying it's time for you to cram instead of carrying things on your shoulders here. This is good advice. She's literally saying, like, I am giving you
listen
good
to
advice.
what I'm saying. Yeah.
This is really time for you to be washing your little sister's body. and then he does the whole thing of, well, it's not like I felt responsible for doing this.
It's not like I'm lathering up or fondling you as he
it does,
runs a sponge over her butt and boobs.
Yeah. But ends up bringing this whole thing in. Basically, the dynamic of he's again distracting and deflecting onto this other aspect
in a very effective way, right?
Yes,
and maybe in a way that he knows Tsukiji will she'll buy into the deflection, for a bit, right? Because one, she saw it for a second,
and then she's like, "Wait, a young girl," and then he's like, "Nothing, forget it," and then he splashes her with the cold water. To forget it, like, actually, please forget the thing that you were bringing up earlier.
Right, exactly.
Not the thing of what I brought up.
I'm not just doing one deflection. I'm doing a solid deflection that I know will get you because, that's the kind of person you are. And then on top of that, I'm going to do another deflection so you won't even remember what it was we were talking about before.
Now, there was no point in the episode where we saw Araragi's reflection, I believe.
No, I don't think so.
So it wasn't like they were trying to set us up for, like... Okay, this is
it just happened or whatever.
But that's the end of the episode. And again, this is just another funny thing. There's so many genius things about the mirror. But I'll just tell you, it's the source of ego, the id, the individual, the being. That. Also, it's the idea that he can't do any self-reflecting because he has no reflection
and self-worth too. Mirror on the wall.
There's so many things in there. There's the other bit in that the mirror is just light bouncing off the bit there. Our eyes in some ways are mirrors in a weird kind of way like that. Or it's kind of like a lens in that respect. So the idea of the thing being unobservable, it's like the filters that we have to go through essentially before we can see reality.
Okay.
And just accepting that we're always seeing things through a filter, and just this one, in addition, is showcasing that there's an internal problem in there.
The emotional filter that Araragi has right now ain't a good one. And he's had that before, but nothing that was as... Because this is in a lot of ways more insidious than where it was in Kizu, I feel like.
This is way more.
Because the thing is that this is somewhere where he could theoretically stay forever. Because
he's blind.
Yep. And the thing is that, because even though he has all these people around him telling him, he could stay here forever
because he's intentionally ignoring them.
He's intentionally ignoring it, but he also is doing just good enough to get by. Right?
It's so painful because in this situation here, there's another even darker place that they could take this to, and this is the one that is more along the lines of why I think this is leading up to some kind of horror related stuff.
Okay,
this is the jump scare, but this is not the real jump scare. This is all build up. This whole thing is build up.
Yeah.
The build-up is that he's actually not perceiving reality correctly. So this is the point I wanted to bring up with the eyes thing, is that this leads me to believe that they're going to eventually have some aspect of Araragi not actually perceiving reality correctly, and he might go insane. Like, he might actually snap.
Okay.
And that, I would say, is the perfect lead into the hitting rock bottom, where he actually pushes away the people close to him. Because he would need to be antagonistic towards himself in order for those that care about him to have to literally abandon him. Because I don't think they would. I think there are so many people that would, not to the extent of Araragi, you know, sacrificing themselves for him, but would stand by him through quite a lot.
Well, one of the other
especially
things,
Sendagahara.
Yes, one of the other things though with the whole idea of the vampirism is that so because and I feel like this is one of the things that threw me off with Araragi's plight in the beginning in Kizu, because I saw it more of just the vampire problem rather than the parallel that it is for him as a person, you know?
Okay.
But the idea that a vampire can't be around people, they can't go out in the sun, right? You know, they don't have the shadow and all that stuff and everything.
Path to isolation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep.
But it's also this idea that, yeah, I mean, the being undead and the feeding off of others, because the thing is that while Araragi does not actually feed off of other people in like a negative sense that they'd be able to tell, he needs to be there to help them.
He needs to be there to save them.
Right, because that's how
he feeds off of it.
Right, because that's how he distracts himself from what he's going through.
Yep.
You know, which is like a positive, well, and we even talked about it in the previous arc, but it's like a positive opposite of Roka, right?
Yes.
You know,
yes.
in that it's something that does help other people, but he's not being taken care of.
So there's that.
Yeah.
This episode was crazy. And not just in the like crazy like visual like scenario or what have you that the second half of the episode was, but like what they're setting up story wise, this is actually kind of scary.
And is it something that's going to be pervasive over the entire rest of the season in like little bits here and there, or is it something that's going to be hyper focused on in this arc and then
until he looks at it,
or like
no
because he's forced to look at it now?
No,
so
he can't.
Well,
that's why I bring up that he can't, is that he is looking at it, but the fact that he actually sees nothing might get him distracted again on the aberration thing, and that there's a problem, and he'll go to Shinobu, and I think
knowing that there's a problem is like the first important part,
right? But I think he'll do the kinds of things of where he'll go to Shinobu, and she'll be like, "Look inside yourself," like. Like she'll point him back towards him there, and he'll be like, there's something else going on here.
I can't wait to see how...
I need an expert.
Yeah, you know? That's a great point. I am really excited to see how Shinobu responds to Araragi and him trying to figure all this stuff out, especially because it's a vampiric thing, so it makes sense for him to go to her, not from the Oshino replacement thing, but also just the idea of that she's the vampire, right? She's the vampire expert, so he'll come asking her about stuff, and she'll be able to figure it out, I'm guessing, rather easily.
Or the answer is like ridiculously obvious, and it's not like something you need an expert for.
Right.
This is one of the other things that I feel like a lot of people do when they're in a really bad situation, and this is something that I've definitely done, is we try to overcomplicate things and make it to be much greater of a problem in terms of how we address it. The idea that we have to focus on things, like I think about it like triangles.
Okay.
Instead of approaching a triangle from a point, you approach a triangle from a side, and you go, the triangle's so big! But if you approach the triangle from the point, it's actually one little step. It's one little piece of the triangle that breaks off, and then you go to a little piece, and then you go to a little piece, and then it gets bigger, and then you're able to actually like take bites out of it. It's all about baby steps is what I'm saying. Now, I might have lost you there, but my point is that he is probably going to look out to specialists rather than taking the little baby steps that he needs to do.
Doing
just
the basic
himself.
things that can address the problem. Yeah,
because
trying to treat it as an aberration problem rather than a no. Did you forget what these aberration problems are a result of? Yeah.
And I think the fact that they were so overt with that in the beginning of this episode is because that's a big part of Araragi's self-deception, is that he's not able to see things for what they really are. And this example of that is just something where the problem
is being made manifest.
Tsukihi succeeded, basically. She got him to look in the mirror.
Yep.
So, Brilliant stuff, Monogatari.
Oh,
well
boy.
done.
What does that mean for the future?
Tsukimonogatari, episode 1. There we go. So, y'all, if you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion, because, oh my god, this is crazy. Right now, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch, any level support gets you access to our Discord, where you can chat with us and the community there. There's a big community surrounding the Monogatari franchise there. You can check it out with them. You can chat with us about all kinds of other anime stories and stuff, like what have you, like Jacob's sci-fi novel that he wrote.
Boom. Segue. Yeah, I mean, come on, you guys know about it. Battle Lines. It's a sci-fi novel. I wrote it. It's pretty cool, I think, and it's on Amazon for purchase if you want to get it. Link in the description down below. If you're in the U.S., hardback and ebook. Outside the U.S., just ebook. But go check it out.
Yeah, so if any of that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.